Hey, everybody. Welcome to another Tuesday podcast live with myself, Joe, and Jen.
Hello.
And today we got some special guests, some friends of ours, some real estate investors. And so we're excited to have on their show, Cory and Ryan. So thank you guys for coming today.
You.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. And we met these guys like years ago.
Yeah.
And it was cool to watch them see what they're doing and grow. They've got an awesome podcast. They're real estate investors. They're regular dudes who do regular dude stuff. They're family, right? But it's really super awesome to see people's accomplishments and what you can do over that short amount of time, right? So who's going to start first? Let's hear a little bit about both of you.
Yeah, I can go. So emphasis on the regular dudes doing regular dude stuff. We do a lot of regular dude stuff. So it's cool, like gym, golf, all the above. But I'm Cory. And Ryan and I met, I'll keep this kind of short. We met 12, 13 years ago in college. And we kind of just connected. Like we knew that we were going to be doing something together. We just had that vibe, how people connect and we are dot connectors. So we went back in college. And then in like 2018, 2019, we ended up living together kind of randomly, brought us together. And then we realized that we're working this job. We're young. We're 25, 26, like going to work every day, just thinking, I wonder if there's more to life than just doing this, because this kind of sucks. It's kind of cool, but it kind of sucks. And we kind of stumbled upon real estate and financial independence, the FIRE movement, as like the thing that we bonded over. So we both bought primary residences. I bought a house hack. Ryan bought a house with his then. Oh no, you were married.
Fiance
your wife.
at that point.
Yeah, a fiance. Yeah. Still married, by the way. I didn't mean he was married and not. He's married now. So, we bought property and then we decided, I think we're going to start a podcast and a real estate business kind of simultaneously. And we're like, maybe people will listen to the stories of the regular dudes who are growing along with you, who are networking, who are trying to do the damn thing, so to speak, like before we get to the point where it feels unrelatable to talk to us. And I hope we get to that point at some time. But the whole point is everyone was like, oh, well, what are these guys doing? Maybe I could latch onto their story. Maybe I could listen and learn. And we felt that the way that we were able to grow is organically network with individuals who are a couple steps ahead of us, and then relay that message on our podcast to people who were interested in growing a real estate portfolio. And fast forward to 2024, we have a few 6 to 8 units together, just the two of us. And then we have we're in a few syndications as general partners and as limited partners. And we co-own a short-term rental hospitality business. So we have like 70 units, some partially owned, some fully owned. And our goal now is to help teach people how to buy their first rental, because we know how much that changed our lives. And that first investment property for me, it was a house hack. And then Ryan and I bought one together. It was like light bulb clicked. So that's a little bit on me, and kind of took some of the thunder there, but go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah. Do you want me to just carry on off that? Or do you
Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, not to retell the story, but I think one of the biggest moments for us was Cory approached me during COVID and was like, the world had shut down. And he's like, dude, we got to do something. And we've been digging into the FIRE movement a lot and studying real estate, reading the books and all that. And he's like, let's just share our story. And I was like, what do you mean? We don't really have a story yet. Like, we had no rentals at that time. We just had our homes that we bought. He was house hacking, I should say. And I was like, you know what? If you want to do it, we have truly nothing else to do. Let's do it. And let's see what can become of it. And then after the first couple episodes, it was just Cory and I talking back and forth ourselves. And we were like, let's interview someone. Let's just see if someone will come on the show. We ended up getting Coach Carson on the show. I think a lot of people probably in your sphere listen to him or know him, but he's from Clemson. He buys long-term rentals. And I think he's the author of 2 books, The Small and Mighty Real Estate Investor, and then Retire Early with Real Estate. Yeah. We had read that book and it really changed our lives. We just kind of like shot for the moon there. We were like, hey, we'd love to have you on the show. You've inspired us. We've started our journey because of you. And he came on the show.
That's
and I
awesome.
think it was awesome. And I think from there, it really, he gave us a compliment. I think you guys are really good at this. We're like, wow, this is like episode 10. We're like, okay, like that gave us someone to believe in you, right? Kind of gave us the edge to keep going with it. And COVID actually, or I should say like the pandemic, that whole time period kind of lasted a while. So we just kept going. And one guest led to another. And then throughout, we realized how powerful of a tool social media and the podcast were, we decided to start an Instagram and kind of pair it with the podcast. So we got our faces out there, we got our thoughts out there, and community, right? That's how we met you guys. And what was really cool is we found a lot of people that are much more successful than us, or where we aspired to be, were willing to lend a hand. And they were like, hey, we're busy with our real estate, but actually I'd love to help pave the way for you and show you guys what I learned so you can skip mistakes. And that was really cool for us. We kind of thought to get into certain rooms, people would be guarded and shielded, and there's like only enough real estate for certain people. And there, a lot of people that we talk to have that abundance mindset, and just, it's, let me show you how to do it, because there's a lot to it. So if you're going to do it anyways, it's going to take a lot of hard work. So I say that to say the podcast really started it all for us. And then we started buying more units together. We ended up finding partners on our podcast for specifically the short-term rental hospitality company we have. We interviewed the gentleman on the podcast. We really hit it off. We really had similar interests, and he was local. So just a lot of things, like that's one example of the power of social media. You know, a lot of times you can get into deals with they not even be boots on the ground, which you guys do, or like not even meeting people in person. You're talking on Zoom for 2 to 3 years. So it's just interesting. The power of social media and podcasts really scaled our portfolio and kind of led us to where we are today. You know, kind of full circle moment, bringing it back and saying, hey, listen, like our rentals really paved the way for us and like changed us from consumer to investor and changed the trajectory of our family and our legacy. So let's teach you how to do it. And that's kind of why we decided to start our coaching program.
And
Wow, you just dropped so many amazing things.
yeah, and I was gonna say it's nuts that, like, you know, obviously you found building your network and the value in that, right? Because you can't try to do it all on your own. And in the beginning, you know, when we found out some of the strategies that we did, we're like, oh my gosh, like, does everybody know how to do this? And I think social media has helped bring everything to the light and really share what's working. And I think really the big part about this business is always networking. It opens up so many doors. So if you're listening, you know, like, how do I do that? Like, go to your meetups, join Facebook groups and other communities.
Start a podcast.
Yeah. Like, seriously, like if you have interest in it, make it an effort to get around the right people. And that's always been the biggest door opener. It's usually not something I've learned. It's getting in front of that right person and making that connection that equals some big old checks. As we're closing a deal today with somebody that we're partnered with, right? And there's many of these opportunities. Sometimes it's a wholesale deal. Sometimes we have people bring us a creative finance deal that they couldn't, you know, figure out, and we'd get it or something like that. So,
but I love how you said, like, you must be getting in the right rooms and opening those right doors, because you're finding those with the abundance mindset. And when you do get around, you know, the more and like in depth people are with the real estate, you know, they just have such a, like, there's so much out there. There's no way we can all, you know, have so much. So I love that you brought that up.
I think the networking aspect, the words networking and like provide value, those 3 words are kind of thrown around a lot. So people that are listening, it's like, how do you do that? I get it. I should network, but like, how do I do it? And the reason why the podcasting game works so well is because you provide an instant mutual benefit for the person who's coming on your show. And they likely either have a product they want to sell, a book they want to sell, or they want to reach more people to help either do deals or accomplish whatever they want. So there's a mutual benefit where a lot of people will say yes and come on podcasts, even when you're small. And we started out small, and we got to a point where people rarely say no coming on our podcast now. So I think that providing that value of like, how can I help this person? It could be, hey, I have a friend who builds websites, and I know that you need you have to kind of dig. You got to do that digging, and like, how can I really help them? Not just say, hey, can I buy you coffee? Because nobody really wants to take the time. They can, some people do, but taking the time to spend an hour, you know, for a $5 coffee is like, that wouldn't be the way that I would recommend networking. So I agree. It's all about networking. We for this 18 unit deal that we have in New Hampshire, that we've been working on it for a year, just over a year, with our guy Sean at Greenbrier Capital. Like, he was able to find these deals, and he's been in this market for, maybe he's 35. So he's been in this market working for 10 years, and he knows exactly how to find deals. And we were good at the marketing aspect, investor relations, and doing some of the underwriting, but also raising capital. So like, there's this mutual, like, when he saw our platform, he's like, I want to come on your show. Let's create a relationship. 2-3 years go by after we get to know somebody, then you can find the benefit, right? But constantly checking in and seeing how that you can help another person, that's the way I feel like networking can really explode and grow yourself and your net worth exponentially.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, and they always say, you could always get in life what you want by helping enough other people get what they want. Right. So, and that's what you guys are figuring out, how to connect the dots, like full circle beginning, you guys are dot connectors. And I think helping bridge that is huge. And obviously you can see that's one of your superpowers. So I want to dial back to
Mhm.
what were you guys doing before you got into real estate? What was life like? Cory, Ryan, like I want to get into real estate. What were you guys like before that?
I think it's interesting because we're kind of still living double lives in a way. So, and I say that in a good way.
That's a good way to
I
put
think,
it.
yeah, because I think
You're
just
like
think-
Batman.
It's Batman. Yeah, that's actually my favorite superhero. So there you go. It's interesting where it's like by day we still have W-2 jobs, and then by night or by weekend or however you want to call it, or hybrid, we invest in real estate and we have our side businesses, and like it's proof that it's doable. I will say it's hard, and it's coming to a point of like, okay, what are we kind of had a meeting of the minds actually before the podcast, like, hey, what's the next stage of us, right? Like, what's version 3? We're in version 2 right now, but like we're trying to level to the next level, and it's hard. I'll say one thing before I get here, but I want to make a point to say, like, in order to really make it and stay consistent, a superpower to that, or a life hack, is finding an accountability partner. I think I look at you two, and you just happen to be married, but the fact that you're both attacking the same thing is really helpful. And we don't have to get into it specifically on the show. I'm sure you guys have done it before, but like, Joe, I know you're amazing at one thing, and Jen, you're amazing at another thing. And maybe you have similar things that you're great at, but like defining your roles and like sticking to them. And at the end of the day, knowing that you're fighting the same fight is super helpful. Same with Cory and I. Like we have similar things that we're good at, but we also have other things that we're one is much better than the other. But at the end of the day, if Ryan's having a slower week, Cory's picking it up, and vice versa. And so it's really helpful to have someone that you can go to war with, because to stay consistent over time, with life hits you in the world, technology changes all the time. The world changes. Like, think about Bitcoin versus the dollar and all these things, like random stuff changes. But if you can stay consistent and have a partner that'll help you kind of like navigate through the fires and like the up and down, that I think is really one of our superpowers that has helped us get to where we get, and allow us to, hey, we keep our W-2 jobs. And I say that because we both get paid well, and we've used these to leverage our portfolio. And I think a lot of people on social media, I want to make a point of this, is like, you'll see a ton of posts like, oh, quit your job and go invest in real estate. You know how many rentals it's going to take you to fully quit your job? Like, we use depending on the market and all the things in the cycle you're in, then people turn to short-term rentals and all these things. We've tried everything, right? Our portfolio is diversified. We have a lot of different things. We have long-term rentals, short-term rentals, 18 units. We're doing ground up construction in Arizona for 135 units. Like, there's a lot of stuff. And so we're finding that it's nice to have that underbelly of a high salary that you can pump into things, and you're still bankable when you want to go to private property yourself. And so by day we work in sales. And so I think the point of me bringing this up or telling you that sales, like, salary jobs aren't really for us. We played sports. We're super competitive. And we quickly realized, like, working at a 9 to 5, let's just say you have a fixed salary. Like, no matter if I have an amazing day or if I have a horrible day, I'm getting paid the same amount. It's nice when you're having a horrible day, right? But then if you're like pumped up, you're doing amazing, you're like, my dollars are not changing at all. So we quickly realized sales was something for us, because the harder we grinded and the more strategic we got to find new clients, the more we'd make, right? And so that's what,
and I think that's what brings so many people to sales. And I think that's why you probably do great with this. High performers don't want a salary. Yep. You don't want a salary. That's holding you back. So obviously you could see why, like with your day jobs, having in sales, this is what's translating here. So you guys have a burning desire. But the reason I was saying this, I want to interrupt real quick. This is like, I thought you can't do that. I thought you can't have a W-2. How are you guys doing it being so busy? Like, you not only do you have a W-2 and you have a real estate portfolio, you've got families, you have a podcast, like, you're juggling multiple things. So like, what kind of advice do you give somebody who's just like that?
They think they're too busy to even get one rental because of their 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Great question. Everything's still a work in progress for us too. So I'd be lying if I said we are experts at this, but I think this is one of the better strategies, is that you have to establish kind of your rules and your boundaries, and also do this sort of time blocking. Like, we know we do podcast recordings Mondays and Tuesday nights. To be honest, we've missed the last 3 Mondays and Tuesdays, right? We know that but those are the days that we do it. So we'll have 2 weeks in a row where we do Monday, Tuesday, right? And then we might miss a couple, but those Monday, Tuesdays are blocked in from 4 to 6. We're doing our podcast recording. So nothing else touches in that time frame. Sometimes it's, I guess, 4 to 7, right? So that time blocking there. And then Ryan and I also have opportunities, certain periods of the day where we know we're able to get certain things done. They're different for both of us, right? But like Friday afternoons, typically, like we're able to lock in on, we're doing either content creation, or we're doing like portfolio management, or we're talking with potential guests. And now it's shifting even more. Like there's, if there's 4 weekends in a month, 2 of them we're probably working, right? Like we're just figuring it out, or we're just blocking that. Hey, I just need these 3 hours in the morning. So
if I ask you what the most popular Netflix show is, do you know?
No.
There we go.
No. I mean, I did watch Presumed Innocent on Apple TV, and that was a
Dude, love that.
great show.
not
Amazing.
Never heard of it.
Love Jake Gyllenhaal. Anyway, but so the point is I know every now and then I'll catch one, and like it's funny because my girlfriend's like rattling off of these shows, and I'm like, I don't really have the interest, but every now and then I'm like, we're not robots. Like we like to.
That's a good point too. It's like you have to be a human too. Like there's so many sides to this conversation, right? And you're like, some days you're like, dude, I'm sick of this. Like I just want to be human. I want to know the Netflix show.
Yeah.
Other days you're like, all right, I get why I don't. Because you get into habits and like bad cycles and good cycles and things. And I think that's funny that he mentioned that show, because that's actually one of my favorite shows, and I'm not caught up yet. But the point here is time blocking. Like he mentioned, there's some weeks that we miss the podcast. We do Monday, Tuesday because we stack them. Like we only have one episode that releases, and it's every Wednesday. So we are very strategic on how to manage our lives. We use Asana, which is like a digital, like base color coordinated board where Cory and Ryan both have access to it. We have a shared email address, shared calendar, shared Calendly. Like there's a lot of things, shared access to Instagram. I'd be lying if I told you we didn't talk every single day. Like we do. Like he's the pinned person at the top outside of my family. And like, it's like navigating each other's schedules, and it has not been easy. There's no magic to it. I think a lot of people want like, well, what's your morning routine? What's this? It's what's right for you. You got to try pretty much everything to see where you fit in, and just know it's going to be hard. I think a lot of people, and we are guilty of this too. You start something because you're interested in it, but you're not dedicated to it. So when you could start it, but then after a week or two, you're like, I'm out on this. And real estate you can't be like that. You continually have to be staying up with trends. You have to be networking, getting in the right rooms, building your team out. There's so many levels to that. I know it sounds like roughly 10 members on the real estate team. It's a little different and creative, probably even more, but we've also toyed around with, for organization, hiring VAs. And we have. Now we've tried you don't have a ton of money coming in for certain businesses, right? So certain VAs, it's just in the beginning, I should say. So certain VAs in the States are going to cost way more than potentially in the Philippines or overseas. So we've tried those. They've been great for certain tasks, like things that are black and white, like here, do this, but any creative task, that's on Cory and I. And I tell you, we've gone up, down, left, and right trying to hire other people within our business. And I think for that's one of the harder things, because no one's going to be as motivated as you about your business and your lifestyle and all that. So that's a different error, that are a different league of their own, right? Like that's stage 2 or 3 for people. But getting your first rental, it's not as complex as you think. There are literally manuals out there for you to go through. And the hardest part, I will say, I think, is going out and interviewing all the members of your team. And meaning like the real estate agent, the lender, the property manager, etc. There's a lot. But once you get your first one, you have to go through the motions. That's what we tell everyone. It's like, once you go through the motions, you've done it. You know how to do it. Like your muscle memory starts kicking in, then you can go do it again, repeat it, go do it again, try other markets, try other strategies. But you need that first one to really get a taste and get that fire started. So that's how we feel.
Absolutely. And I love, how you're really, opening up and sharing like where you guys are today. And yeah, hiring and leading and managing a team is an ongoing process. It's something that I know every day we wake up, like, how can we be even better leaders? It takes a lot, and it's really important to remember how much time that takes too. So as you are growing, you almost have to like slow down to speed up. And that's what I found time and time again. So I love that. If you're listening and you have any questions, I know you guys threw out some terms there, house hacking and the FIRE movement. So maybe even take a minute and kind of break those down. for anyone who maybe is just stumbling onto this podcast and just curious. They're kind of like, well, what are those things? How did you get into this real estate gig?
Yeah, I think house hacking is probably the single most, for beginners, it's the single most powerful thing you can do in real estate. And I say this for a number of reasons. To find a long-term rental in this market, you can do it. Absolutely. They're all over the place, but you have to really know what you're doing. You have to really search to be able to house hack, to eliminate your housing expense or significantly reduce your housing expense. You can do it all over the place and left, right, up, down, any city. So, when I got started, I house hacked a 3-bed, 2-bath, meaning I lived in one of the rooms. This isn't separate units. It's one of the rooms. And then I had friends live in the other 2 rooms. My mortgage was $1,500 a month. I wasn't overcharging my roommates. I think one paid $7, the other paid $700. Sorry, $700. So I paid $100 a month to live. Now,
Right.
what that did for me, instead of spending the $1,500 or the $2,000 to live in a nice apartment, and now, and we live in Philadelphia, $2,000 is not like even that nice. It's like decent, right? So, but to not spend that and to put that on the sidelines, to put that in a savings, to put it in investing, to put it away, to then go to the next rental, that's how we were able to grow quickly. So house hacking can be in that form of a 3-bed, 2-bath, a 4-bed, 3-bath. It can be in a 2-unit, a 4-unit, a triplex. So where you live in one unit and you rent out the other. And to me, I think a lot of people are looking like, oh, how can I eliminate my housing expense altogether? It's harder now on a 7% interest rate than it was on a 3.5 or 4. But what if, and I've talked about this with my girlfriend, because I think before we have children, we're probably going to do this again. Buy a triplex. There's new construction triplexes. You can go there. You can buy a triplex. You can rent out, even if it's a $600,000 property. It's not a cheap property. It's nice. You can rent out if it's 2-1, 2-1, 2-1, 2-bed, 1-bath, 2-bed, 1-bath, 2-bed, 1-bath. You can rent out one of those for $2,200, another one for $2,200. That's $4,400. That's going towards your mortgage. That's probably like $5,000. Okay, so you have a $600 a month payment that you're living there, and you're building equity in the home, and you're getting principal pay down and all the tax benefits. So to me, it's extremely powerful, and we teach it. And I'm gonna probably do it as long as I can until my girlfriend that will become my wife says, yo, we got 2 kids. We're not doing this anymore. You know what I mean? But to have a few of those is, even if you do one a year, I think, especially if you're in your 20s, it's like no brainer. So that's the house hacking strategy there.
Yeah, that's the first thing we recommend when people like let's say we're talking to the traditional like person that goes to high school, college, and then they get out of college to get their first job, right? And they're like, they say maybe making 6 figures after a year or 2, and then they have some money. That's the thing. They want to exponentially grow. That's an excellent long-term play, and to be able to not spend all of their hard-earned money on their rent, right? And so that just kind of is packaged into what we recommend for people. And I think that I watched him single-handedly like change his life by house hacking. We've had a bunch of other people on the show for that too. And I think it parlays into the FIRE movement. So you guys asked about that, and that's FIRE stands for financial independence, retire early. So a lot of people like attribute that or like pull in real estate with that, but really it's like, how can you live your life now so that you can retire at a younger age than most, like not the traditional 67 and collect your check. So there's so many ways to go about this. There's lean FIRE, fat FIRE, traditional FIRE, barista FIRE, coastal, like people, they started like adding things in there, and they all mean different things. And your listeners can go
barista FIRE.
Yeah, that one
I didn't even know.
I think it was a force, but look it up. And so for us, we're like the fat FIRE guys. And what that means is accruing as much income as we can now when we're young and we're in our growth stage. So that way we can retire before 40. And I say retire, but like live comfortably, have basically our own schedules and run our own ship the way we want, not have to punch in a clock every day. So there's that. And then there's other people that do it completely frugally, meaning they cut down every expense, starting with their housing. Maybe they house hack. Then they buy a really cheap car. They don't go buy the 40,000 SUV. Like they have a dated car that has a lot of miles on it. And they're living frugally as possible. There's couponers. There's levels to the FIRE movement, right? And we're like, wow, this is interesting. I didn't know people lived this way. And I think the book that really there's like 3 books, but Set for Life by Scott Trench was a good one that kind of goes into some of the FIRE movement. And then for anyone listening, I'm sure you recommend this to pretty much all your real estate folk, but Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I know He's a little bit polarizing now today, Robert Kiyosaki. But I will say it teaches you how to think about money differently. And the money you have coming in, you want to deploy it differently. And so that's the book we recommend to everybody to read that's interested in real estate in any capacity, because it just transforms the way you deal with money, think about money, and that's from collecting it, earning it, and then going and spending it. And so that really was the light bulb moment for us. We're like, we just got to do this thing, man. And
and I like the fat fire, because here's the thing, what a lot of people don't understand, like sounding like I want to retire at 28 sounds awesome and all, but that's not really that realistic. Because I think what happens is once you see somebody in their 60s and 70s and 80s, expenses are going to be a lot higher than you planned because there's inflation, right? So your dollar's not going as far as you were hoping it to or projecting it to, but you're also in probably the least healthiest point of your life, right? So your medical expenses and other things can be a lot higher than you would hope. Maybe living abroad was your dream until you see what healthcare is like in other countries. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not good, right? Because I know for me, my dream was always to retire on some tropical island. And then one of my friends was like, have you ever seen the hospital on some of these tropical islands? Like if you have a really bad Crohn's disease issue, do you think you want to go in there? And I'm like, geez, I never thought of that, right? So it really kind of opens your eyes, because I guess maybe in 2008, 2009, it scarred me a little bit. I was working at the car dealership, and I couldn't believe how many people who were in their 70s and 60s who were retired. And because of the economy, the way it kind of crashed, and no one knows when it's going to happen or predict it, or anyone might never happen like that again. Who knows, but probably will. But I had full-grown, adults, my grandparents' age, in my office crying, because this is where they were supposed to live their best life, and now they have to go get a part-time job greeting people at Walmart and stuff. So retire at 20, 30, that sounds great. But if you're going to do it right. Okay. So like what you said, I'm accumulating as much property as I am now. I'm not out blowing all my money, partying and spending it like you can be. You're smart about it. Like you're saving that money, you're stacking it, and you're reinvesting it back in your business. So now money's actually working for you. Mm-hmm. So I do love that part of it. And as far as the frugal part, I get it, but like you can't do it all and, for nothing. You got to be able to have some cash to be able to splurge. Birthday weekend in Tampa just this past weekend was not cheap.
Not frugal.
You don't want it to be cheap, right? Like
yeah.
I think that most people.
Oh, and it wasn't, buddy.
Yeah,
it wasn't.
I saw the Instagram post, and it didn't look cheap. But I think you don't want to live like that too. And I think the retire early thing is kind of taken a turn too, because really what you want, we talk about this, like your passion versus your purpose and everything. Like ideally what happens is you stack up enough assets and enough income coming in that you can revert to and get back to something that you're super passionate about. Right. It doesn't mean that you're sitting on a beach doing nothing. Like anybody that takes the time and energy and effort to retire early probably won't, because your brain is cycling through this firestorm of like how you were able to get there. And but what you can do is do something that you're extremely passionate about, that lights you up, that gets you out of bed every day, and you're not desperate going to work, the job that you hate. So even retiring is like, I'm not sure that we're going to retire. It's just that we want to do something that we love doing. And honestly, the coaching aspect is something that we love to do. So we're not at a point where we're financially free and have all the money in the world, but we're at a point where we can make smart decisions and do things that we like and enjoy and provide value to others.
Yeah. Well, and that's what our coach calls success is a good night's sleep, right? And when I was able to walk away from my job 4 years ago, and Jen, you walked away, what?
2011.
So 13 years ago, she got to walk away from her teaching job. So when you do it at first, it's a little scary, right? Because you're used to having that job. And then you get told, it's just a bag of lies. Like you don't have to have a job. You don't have to. Like your first year of teaching, how much did you make?
$29,000.
I got you beat, Jen. 19K.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and that's wild if you think about it. You go to college, you spend all this time, you're getting your master's, your first year teaching, you make $29,000. We make more than that on one deal now.
Yeah.
So
it's crazy,
and I think that's the point, is we get sold that you have to work real hard, put your 40 years in, have that punch bowl retirement plan, when it doesn't have to be like that. So it's really cool to see you guys, while you're many others, right? You're working your W-2s. Here you guys got families, right? You've got things going on in your life. You've got some personal goals besides work, and you're still finding those little cracks in the day. You're time blocking. You're being very smart with your time. You're being smart with your money.
It's like a non-negotiable. I think it's like a mental thing where if you put it on your calendar and you have each other to kind of, like you said, hold yourselves accountable. But if you don't have someone else, like, you just mentally have to hold yourself accountable. Like, I am going to call my sellers at this time. I'm going to go to this appointment, or whatever it might be. But if you don't do it, it's never going to happen. And that's really how you guys are getting to where you're at today.
Yeah, and you'll never retire, you two. I could just tell.
No,
you'll never. I don't think I'll ever retire. I don't see it. I love what I get to do, and
you retired from the car dealership, but other
yeah, because that was a job, a job, right? And it doesn't. And that's one thing. But as far as like what I get to do now, is like I wake up in the morning, I get to spend time with my wife. I get to see the kids that we homeschool. They're here. And that's, to me, my non-negotiable. Like, if I can't be around my wife and kids, like, I don't want to be a part of it. If it's like a day or something like that, that's cool. But if not, like, I love having my family with me, because like, you'll never get this time back. It's the most valuable time you're going to spend. So at that point, I want to have that flexibility, and I want to be there to be the dad who actually was there to raise my daughter and my son, and not be the dad that was just working at my job.
Yeah, I think about that. Yes, I have a 15-month-old. Yeah. So she just started walking, which is the coolest, unbelievable thing in the world. It's the coolest thing ever. And so I say that to say I understand how you're feeling, and it's interesting where I always used to see posts like the guy with like $2 million got the sweet car and the nice house, and then you see the dad like holding two kids walking down the street, and like who is more wealthy, or who's the rich one in this picture, right? And I started to realize it's the dad. And for me, you don't really get it till you're there. And this could be for moms too and things, but to be able to have the time to go do that and not be burdened by a job, or like, oh my God, like, we're not gonna be able to pay our bills if I'm doing this versus that. Like, I think no matter where you are in life, like it's gonna be a struggle at some point, right? Nothing's perfect, and there's always things that hit you, but to have the relief and not the financial burden, or like the little like person on your shoulder that's just like, hey, you got to go to work, you got to pay the bills, you got to do this, like, and you don't want to be thinking about that while you're with your kid too, right? Like, you have to be mentally there too, which is so hard to do for people. Like, I just think about, there's some things I've seen, and there's so many inner voices going through your head every day. It's like, oh man, I got to provide for my family, I got to spend more time with my kids, I have to have a social life, I have to travel, I have to do this. Like, everybody's thinking all these things, and how do you compartmentalize things and like give them each their time? And I think it's very important to do, but very hard to do, is like when you get home from work or get home from what you guys are doing, coaching, it's like shutting off and just putting the phone away, because everyone always needs something. Maybe it's a coaching student, maybe it's a seller, maybe it's a buyer, whatever. Like, just shut the phone off and just be in the moment, because those moments, as you mentioned, they're not that your son or daughter is never going to be that same age ever again, right? And like the next day is different. And so it's just interesting how things change, and my perspective has changed on things. But
so the hack there, Ryan, the real hack is to be both dads. Be the one with the millions of dollars and the nice car and the nice house, but still walking with the kids and spending that time. Because what I've noticed is so many of the, in the car business, it's really a male dominated industry, although there's some really powerful women in there. But most of the owners that I knew that were men, their biggest regret was they made a lot of money, but by the time they're getting to enjoy it, their kids have already moved out. Their kids have already moved out. They didn't have that big bond relationship with them. So, I don't want our kids moving like more than a few miles away, although we have that talk all the time. Like, I don't know. I love being around them. They love being around us. And it's really fortunate we have those relationships with our kids, because the way I was going, I mean, I barely saw my son for the first 5 years. And that stinks.
I think that's most people, and I know it's most people, and it's the way things are set up, right, in society. And so there's like, that's a whole like 10-hour conversation. We won't go down that road, but it's interesting to see, because that's why we're having conversations like this, right? Like, we're products of the people that tried something different. And we have read the books, we've done all the research, analyzed the deals, but you don't really know until you just go do the thing. Like, you're never going to be 100% prepared. You just got to take a leap of faith. And is the risk you take, or the chance you take, for that life better than doing what you're currently doing in the job, knowing for a fact that you're going to waste those years better, right? Like for us, it's like, gun to my head, can I go do that? Yes, but I don't have the motivation to go do it yet. Like and I say that might not make sense what I'm saying, but back against the wall mentality has kind of proved to us, like whenever, for me in school growing up, and I think probably a lot of people can relate to this, like you have a test on Friday and you're like, dude, I just can't study right now. Like I just, for whatever reason, you get to like maybe Wednesday and then, okay, cram, study it, do well. And then you forget the information. Like real estate is not really like that. And I was kind of talking to Cory about this the other day. Like you need to study, act, and then learn some more through the process and then go do it again. So you can scale up and try the next creative strategy where you can't just cram and then be done with it. It's like a continual consistency thing. And so it's hard, but it's worth everything, because the money, then you finally get your money to start working for you. And some days you don't have to go out and chase it. That's what we found in real estate. It's very forgiving in certain aspects and it's manipulable. It's tangible. It's not like just sitting in the stock market. Granted, we have a lot of stock and all that too, but what we found is real estate has really like helped us get to the next level of our lives. And that's why we recommend it to everybody.
But you just dropped a couple gold nuggets, and I want to kind of dial back on the first one. I was like, you have to like have a serious burning desire, because if you're just going to go try this out for 2 weeks, like just stop, go watch videos on other stuff. Don't even bother. If this is something like, I have a why, I have a burning desire. I saw people who are mega wealthy. They were mostly from real estate, right? They all had real estate. And I was like, okay, there was a common theme there. So the burning desire, what draws you into this? Maybe it's your childhood. Like I didn't grow up with a lot of stuff, right? I grew up poor. So to see that on the flip side was like such a contrast for me. And I think that's really the key. So having that burning desire, I think, is the first big step. And you could see you both have that. Like this is what pushes you when you don't feel like doing it, right? And the time blocks that you guys are doing, you're treating it like a business. You're not just hoping it happens. Like you're legitly treating it like a business. And this is why, once again, so if you're listening here, like Ryan and Cory are dropping some serious gold nuggets. And I think the thing is too, with real estate, the only way you're going to learn how to do it is by actually doing it. Like if we all sat around and like, hey, Cory, you want to go for a bike ride? I'm going to teach you how to ride a bike. And here's some videos on riding bikes. And here's a book on how to ride a bike. And here's some person riding by on his bike. Here's a picture of a bike, right? But the only way you're going to learn is get on that sucker and start pedaling, right? You might crash, but have somebody there over your shoulder to hold you.
So you're definitely going to fall over. Ridden before.
Yeah.
It's that fear. It's I don't know how to fully explain it because everyone has different situations, but like, you're probably talking to people. Some have kids, some don't. Some are aged 40 and they're in a different life cycle versus the 25-year-old, right? That has a ton of free time when they come home. And so that's the hard part. And you can't coach. You can to a certain point to overcome fear, but at some point it's I don't know if I can swear on here. So you poop or get off the pot, right? So there you go. So basically it's like, you're either going to do it for yourself or not. And and I'm saying this because we have tried 5 different things, and there's things that we've gotten to like just about doing, and they're like, nah, we're not doing that. And it's like, dude, why didn't we do that? And I don't know. I can't explain it. And maybe it's the fear. Maybe it's just like, we're not interested in this anymore. It's like, there's so many other things going on. I think for me, it's like, we realize we're like, dude, we can read all the books we want to read. We can study this, blah, blah, blah. And just go doing it. When you're thrown in the fire, you learn so much through going in the fire. You learn way more than the 200-page book by week 2 of being in it. So that's all I can say about pretty much anything.
And to add on that a little bit, the doing aspect is like, we're sitting here talking, and like it's kind of like a highlight reel a little bit of like what we've done, and it seems like we have all of our shit together, and we maybe do more than some, but really at the end of the day, like there's so much that we still want to learn. And I say that because my first rental property, 1 week after I bought it, it was raining through my house, truly raining in my house. We bought another rental property. It burned to the ground. We bought a third rental property. We had a contractor. We were going there every single day after work, like helping the contractor, like moving all the furniture in and out. Like we were in the mix, and in the time period where you're doing it, you're like, damn, am I doing the right thing? And you just buy real estate and wait. And it typically works out. If you run your numbers right, it typically works out. So when you're in the middle of it and you have analysis paralysis and you don't know if you're doing the right thing, you get around the people that know what they're doing, you trust your gut, and you take action, and then you live with the results. And the results will teach you either, damn, I got to do that again, or, okay, I'm not doing that again. I'm doing something different. And as long as you don't lose it all on your first deal, you're either going to win big or you're just going to learn, pivot, do it again. And before you know it, you take that committed action for 5 years and you look back and you're like, damn, I really did something. So that's kind of the committing and the doing action part that really stuck out. And you have to do it. It's hard, but you do.
Well, and I think too, it's not just an instant gratification. So like my very first deal, I wholesaled it. I got a check for like 13 grand. This was a long time ago. So hurrah, like I made a whole bunch of money. But then when we started buying more of these properties, the very first one that Jenn and I bought together was in 2008. Like that thing has just been a little bit of a cash cow, but we still own that house, right? So if we were to sell it, yeah, we'd make a bunch of money, and it's still making us money every month. But the whole thing is over time, you pick up one or two here. That's the key, and it's just growth. And that's why I think we dialed back into more creative finance. I mean, we just bought a condo with $100 down in Jacksonville, Florida. We had to pay some closing costs too, which was probably like $6,000 in closing costs. But we have a turnkey condo in Jacksonville. We bought a house in New York today. So I think when we learned how to buy these creative deals, my gosh, like you guys, there's so many different ways of real estate. And this is where I'm getting to with this. You got to pick one or two that you really jive with and that really fits, like feels good for what you're doing, and go into that. And it's okay, like what you mentioned, to pivot. So if I got into building commercial buildings and I realized rates went way up or something happened and that's no longer a thing, right? Well, what is the other? And that's why, once again, with creative finance, we're I know my wife says no, but we have a deal we're looking at in North Carolina. The guy's got a bank.
The bank.
And he wants to sell a bank. He's open to doing seller financing, 10 grand down. It's got 25 parking spots right in town. I mean, it's got the vault and everything. And I'm like, well, my gosh, right? And the payment's low. So
I thought you wanted cash now.
no, because now he's still back to terms.
Well, the reason that you're able to, it's funny, you nonchalantly throw around like, well, we closed on a property yesterday, we're closing on one today. And the reason that you're able to do that is because you've been doing it for 20 years. Like, so if going to the gym 2 days a week will get you maybe stronger than if you didn't go at all, going to the gym 4 days a week will really help. And if you go 5 days a week, you're going to see a lot bigger of a difference, but it's not going to happen in 3 months or even 6 months. Or it might take a year. It might take 2. So the more you do it, the muscle memory of you guys know how to go into any market and analyze any deal and come out and win, or you say no to it because it's not a deal. And you and I talked about this, Joe, like 3-4 weeks ago. You told her like, you're not buying that property. I'm like, got it. Right. And I talked to you because I have a decent amount of experience in real estate. We know what we're doing. And then you talk to somebody who's like, I've seen this for 20 years. You guys have seen it for 5, right? I'm not comparing. The point is that the more that you have the muscle memory of it, the longer you do something, the more you stay committed to it, the easier it is to say, yeah, I closed the deal yesterday and I'm closing on one today.
Well, also there's like an entire team and operation behind it. So like we mentioned before, like we could sit here and chat about it, but hours went into that 1 deal, 2 deal, to make it happen. And it's so true. And I wish a camera could follow us around or maybe not. I don't know. It's a little crazy at times, but yeah, it's so true. Like how much work goes behind the scenes, the late nights, the early mornings, like how many times he opens the door at 6 a.m. and I'm already at my computer. Or last night he's like, you need to log off. And I'm like, well, what are you doing? And he's working too. So like you said, there's got to be a cutoff time. It's a little tricky to figure that balance out. I don't really know if there's a balance. I like to look at it kind of a harmony. So there's times where your business needs you more. And then there's times where we just took a few days off, went to Tampa, and nobody talked to us.
Nobody. It was actually, we were surprised. This was the first vacation we took in 6 years, and not one of our team members, and one was actually going to do it just for a prank.
Yeah.
But nobody bothered us. Like they were still doing deals. They were still talking to sellers.
They were training a virtual assistant. Yeah. The whole, and it's awesome to get to that point, but it's taken a lot of hard work.
Did stuff get done while you're away?
Oh yeah.
Maybe you should take more time off.
Well, you know what? We were talking about that.
I totally agree with that. Yeah.
But you know what? I got to say, like, and I dial back to it because in the very, very beginning. It's fun to see now, like you mentioned, Cory, it's a highlight reel, but it's like you don't see how many times there was like legit blood, right? Sweat, tears, stuff that happens, right? That you don't know. The late nights, the early mornings, the sleepless nights. Oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? So yeah, while it is look great and it is a lot of fun, you guys you do handle some stress from time to time. So what is your number one like stress reliever, I would say, because you got to have some type of vice, right? Is it the gym? Is it the water, beaches?
Hire a lawyer. Well, in general, I will say that you should have an attorney on your team. When you get into any type of business, just to give you peace of mind, because truly, and I know you guys have one. That's why I can say this. It's like you gotta make sure. Yeah, 5 probably. It's depending what you're doing, but you gotta have all your I's dotted and your T's crossed across the board. And there's so many different nuances with everything in real estate business, starting and closing business, like all this stuff. So for me, peace of mind, like I just needed to know, like, know you're protected on all fronts, make sure the businesses are set up properly, whatever. That's where you start. But I think the question was, it how you put your head down at night? Is that where I'm at?
Like, what's your stress reliever? Like, what do you do to relieve
for
stress?
fun? Yeah, a hobby.
Gym, 100%.
Yeah,
gym and running.
Yeah, for me, it's gym and playing golf. And I play golf for a number of reasons: to be out in nature, like really, really challenge myself mentally. Like I love the sport. I kind of was a basketball guy and I transferred into golf because I don't want to like tear my Achilles. So and then I work out 5 days. Like we work out 5-6 days a week, and we do that. And I can confidently say it has more mental benefits than physical benefits. And it's like, it's a non-negotiable, because the amount of energy that it gives us to get back to work. Like sometimes I'll go at noon in the middle of my day. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. I'm just going to go, because I know that I can be up till 8, 9, whatever, working, because it gives me the energy, watching the progress happen. So I think, it's not like neither of us have any like vices, I don't think. But I honestly, if I go a week without working out, you might not want to be around me. So maybe that is a vice. Like it's important.
I'm a completely different person if I don't work out. And I think it's almost like I don't know the right way to phrase this, but there's some days that I have to go. I know I'm like checked out of what I'm doing, or like I have no motivation, and I'll either go to the gym, but a really nice run, like 3-mile run, 3-4 mile run, like just, it completely clears my head, and I'm like just upbeat, happy again, relaxed, like the testosterone's down. Like I think both of us, and I think that's probably something we bonded over too. Like we used to go work out together while we lived together, even in college, like things like that. And it's you find like high performers, they pretty much have a healthy diet, they work out, vices, had a couple drinks once in a while, like going on vacation. That's not a vice, but like that's something you need to also like offload. Like once a year, my wife and I, we try to, like, an all-inclusive resort, just book it. Like we need to go, because you get so built up with all the things you have going on. You just need to shut off and get away. Philly turns gray a lot, and it's super demotivating. I came down to Tampa. I think we were talking about this, but we did like a week in Tampa, or St. Petersburg, one of those two, in the winter. And I was like, dude, I was like, I didn't want to go home. It was amazing. Like I ran outside, the palm trees, and it's just a mental thing. A lot of this game, what I'm trying to get to is, a lot of this game is a mental game, and you have to play against yourself a lot, because you can trick yourself into saying, you know what, this is too hard. I'm working the 9 to 5 until I'm 40. I don't care anymore. I can't deal with this person. They're so annoying. Like, how am I supposed to make this salary by myself and figure this out and put these pieces together? It's so hard. And like, I don't think, and this is when you get kind of down the road into like trying new things and building out businesses. Like you don't have to create a business day one when you buy a rental property. Like you treat it like a business, and that's how we kind of go about it. But I think for some people that might seem too daunting, like, well, I don't want to start a business. Well, it's like, well, take baby steps here. But
I'll say this, it's when I meet somebody who's, and this isn't meant to be vain. It's just meant to like kind of a little bit of a reality. When I meet someone who's in good shape, I think that person takes care of themselves. They're disciplined. They probably are disciplined in other areas of their lives. It's not a judgment if you're not. It's just more so like, I feel like I can trust people that have this innate mindset. Like, I got to be in good shape. I got to be around for my kids. I got to be here. I got to be healthy. All this other stuff doesn't mean anything. You can have all the money in the world. If you're If you're unhealthy and not going to make it to 50, 60, like, well, almost what's the point? So kind of to circle back to like your question, I think that the health and fitness is so important. It's like, well, why do any of this if you're not going to be around?
Yeah, you got to take care of yourself. And I would say is, somebody who has Crohn's, there's many days where like, especially, I mean, I feel great now, but in the past, like I'd be pretty sick. And it doesn't matter about how much money you have. It doesn't matter about anything. If you're not feeling well and operating at your best, boy, life can really stink. So, your health is most important. And, you got to do that. And I think that's key. And so finding those little things that you guys like to do, obviously that's what's keeping your business running better. You've got some peace of mind. You're getting out some of these frustrations that you have, and you're taking it out on the weights, right?
Yes.
And at the end of the day, rather you could take that break in the middle of the day or at night, you're blocking that into your schedule and you're being very disciplined, especially if you're doing it 5 days a week. You're taking it pretty darn serious.
Yeah, in the beginning of every week on a Sunday, I just write the days that I'm going. And it could happen that instead of 7 a.m., it ends up being 7 p.m. Like I may shift it, but it's like, I am not making it through this week without going 5 days. So if it's just not happening. So that's part of it's part of the fun too, and it just makes us, I think, better all around.
It's part of like, for me, I think about it as like fuel to the car, right? Like you need to fuel it up for it to be able to go and like perform. Like for us, we need to work out to be at our best. And if not, we're going to be grumpy, we're going to be agitated, and then, or maybe demotivated. And so there's a lot of things that come to it. We just found and then typically when you're working out, you want to eat healthier because you're like, well, why would I do all this work just to have to go do the cycle again? Right. So I think training yourself in that too, and like getting into a routine and a habit, I think it takes 21 days to form a habit. I think that's what they go by these days. And so like for us, like bringing that back to real estate, it's, if you can kind of just every day do something that is towards the goal that you want to do, you'll get to it. And then you get in the cycle of it. Right. And you're like, okay, I'm analyzing X amount of deals per week, then making X amount of offers. And then it just you weave it into your schedule. We, as humans, we're very good at adapting to certain situations. So even though you only think you have, or you only have how many hours in a day that you're awake, let's call it 12 hours or whatever it is, you can stretch that and finish other tasks faster just to be able to get to the next thing. And I've learned that we've been able to do that. Or like we change our days a bit where like Monday, Tuesday, we can do this. And then on Wednesdays, we can fill it with this. So it just comes with repetition, i.e. working out and like doing it and training the brain, or training the muscle of working out and training your brain to do things versus like the physical aspect. So
yeah, I love it. And I totally agree too. If I don't move, I'm miserable. So movement is medicine for sure. You guys are such incredible inspiration, and I really want to let people connect with you. So where can our listeners find you? What do you have going on behind the scenes? And definitely share a little bit more about how they can connect with you if they are loving what they're hearing and they want to find these two dudes in Philly.
2 dudes in Philly. Yeah. So you can find us. We spend most of our time on Instagram. So our handle is Wealth Juice Official. And then you can find us on our website is juice-enterprises.com. We pretty much are on Instagram every day with a post, a story. And then if you want to DM us, we're happy to chat. We also, as Cory mentioned, we are rolling out our coaching program. So we're going to be taking on 10 students to help them buy their first rental. And we have a link in our bio on Instagram. So click that, sign up for a 30 to 40 minute call with us to see if we're a right fit, see where you're at in your journey, and if it makes sense. And that's our next evolution is like, how can we help more people become investors and then eventually start buying creative deals and go to the next level and get advanced. So
did you mention the pod too?
Oh, our podcast. Yeah, we have a podcast.
I was going to say, wait a second.
Yeah. Well, you can see the setup here, the Wealth Juice podcast. And we aired every Wednesday. We've had, a bunch of investors, Brandon Turner, David Green, Tarek El Moussa, you two. I love how all in that same category. And then we're on episode 220 something. So we've been doing it for 4 years. And we're kind of giving you the real life, like how to, as people go along with it. We try to be organic and free flowing and just have great conversations that hope to inspire people to not only buy their first rental, but then expand their portfolio and other aspects of their life. So those are the places to find us.
Well, I love how you guys share, you share your abundance mindset, your networking. You guys are doing all of the right things. Like you're checking off every box, right? And it's really cool. That's why we've known from the beginning when we first met you guys, like, wow, it's really awesome to connect with people like you. So when you're coming to Tampa, you know where to come hit us up, because we did the same thing. We came down here. We were like, wait, there's no gray skies. There's palm trees and it's sunny and it's warm. This is great.
Not leaving.
Not leaving. And for a fun fact, it is probably just as hot here today as it is where you guys are.
Yes, yes, we know that.
So
you don't have to.
It really doesn't. It doesn't really get much hotter. It just stays hotter for longer. And it's sunny like all the time. So you better bring your sunshade. But you know, we can't wait to hang out with you guys and, you know, continue to be a big fan and what you're doing. It's really exciting to see.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for having us on, and you two are an inspiration to us. You've taught us a lot. We've come to you when we need advice. We've modeled some of our coaching program, not about the same thing, but after you know, some of the ways that you've done it. And it's great to watch you two grow over the past several years of knowing you. And I know we'll make this virtual relationship more of an in-person one in the future. So we appreciate it.
Bam. Awesome.
Well, thanks so much for taking some time out of your busy schedules. And yeah, absolutely. When you come down to Tampa, definitely got to meet up and maybe shoot some in-person content. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
If you're listening and you love what you hear, please make sure you head over to Creative Finance Playbook on YouTube and subscribe, and check us out on Apple and Spotify. Until next week, guys, we'll have some more guests on sharing all about how to buy real estate, change your lives, and do the darn thing. So until then, we'll talk to you guys soon.
See y'all.